Okay, welcome everyone to our meeting, our council meeting today of Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. The time is 1 p.m. We have a full complement of council. We have some staff with us today, and we want to welcome those that may be tuned in via YouTube and the recorded version hereafter. So I'll call this meeting to order at this time, and I will read our land acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge that the township of Asphodel-Norwood is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and the Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Perv Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Islands First Nations. We respectively acknowledge that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. So at this time, Council, I'll ask for a moment of silent reflection so we may reflect upon our duties of today as councillors of Asphodel-Norwood. Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'll ask council at this time if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest at now or at time of topic. All right, seeing no hands, thank you. Then I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda as amended for today, that we're going to be going into a closed session under the items 239B and 239E. So I need a motion then for that, please. Motion by Councillor War, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? That's carried. I need a motion then to approve the minutes of the March 8th, 2022 meeting, and that the recommendation of the minutes for that regular meeting be adopted as presented or amended. Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Walsh, and that would be as presented then. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Is there any business arising from those minutes? All right, seeing no hands, thank you. On to the consent agenda then. It's correspondence for information. We have C1, C2, C3, C4, and some reports R1 and R2. So that we need a motion then that we approve the consent agenda as circulated. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor or Councillor Archer. All right, just to throw you off. All right, any questions or comments or concerns? Okay, Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, just a quick question, probably to you, Mayor, and to Deputy Mayor Burt. It's regarding C4, the County of Peterborough, and then within that special county minutes regarding county DC charges. Do you have any timelines? I know there was a presentation provided in there. I had a chance to review it. Do you know what timelines are when the final decision will be made on the DC charges at county level?
It's, I believe, Deputy Mayor, that just to refresh your memory on that too, but I think it's around April is when it has to come out. They have to go to a public meeting yet to get the public input and to get the township's responses back and one thing after another on that also. So, but
yeah, I do have dates now. They could change, but right now what we have is April 6th. It's a DC rate study public meeting. Okay. And then May 2nd, there's a special meeting for council to be approved on that date. So May 2nd. So that's what we have.
Yeah, and then after that, then it'll be correlated and then voted on basically to say this is where we're at, right?
Okay, thank you.
All right, Candace, you want to fill us in on some more on that, please?
I just have just a follow-up question, if I may then. So was there discussion as to whether the lower tiers then are to participate in the public information meeting on April 6th, and that is our opportunity to participate in that process? Is that the understanding then we are to participate on April 6th?
I was under the understanding that staff for reaching out to the lower tiers as well to provide input. That
Okay.
was, and so has there been anybody reach out? Because that was my thought from the last meeting that we had. County meeting, sorry, but
there has been preliminary information provided through email.
okay.
There has not been any meetings held with the lower tiers to discuss the DCs. I suspect that'll probably come now that they've got these dates booked. I do suspect it'll come, but there's enough time between April 6th and May 2nd. We have 2 council meetings in between those public meetings. So
Okay.
I'll be able to reach out and get some more information and how it's going to impact us and swing back to you guys at one of those 2 meetings before May 2nd.
Okay, yeah, because it was my understanding that they were reaching out to the.
I'm sure a meeting is coming then.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Great. I seen Councillor Wall, your hand was up.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. I just had a question about R2 and a comment. Nicely written report. It's nice to see that we're going to have our safety thing done in time, the community safety and wellness well-being plan. I just wanted to ask, how was the response going to the survey that's been put out, the committee survey that was put out, and just wondered if we had any numbers on that yet. Thank you.
Anybody like to answer that one? Okay, Melanie, please.
If I may, and through you, I looked this morning and we had over 140 responses to date. So that's not bad to start, but if you want to spread the word, please do. That would be great.
Well, that's amazing, because that's anytime we do a poll, we're lucky to get to, well, we outdo a lot of the other townships when we're being polled. That's for sure is the percentage that people respond back to. So good job, Melanie. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie.
Any other questions, council, on this? All right, we have a motion on the floor. It's duly seconded. All in favor then, please. And then that's carried. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda then is delegations and presentations. So we have some representatives, I believe, here going forward. In this delegation is for our grandchildren. Candace, you want to do some introductions, or is that okay? Al, you're the lead delegate here.
I am here and I'm lead delegate today.
All right, sir. Well, just to let you know, we have a 10-minute limit, and so the time is yours, sir. You go ahead.
Thank you very much. It would be convenient if I could share screen. Is that possible, or would you want to click through the presentation for me?
Candace will look after you there, I'm sure, Al.
You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it says that my screen sharing has been disabled. You have to enable it at that end. I think it's right at the top.
Just hold on. Just give me a sec.
Don't worry, we'll give you some time there.
Thank you.
Once she gets started. I haven't started the clock yet, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not allowing me to do that.
Usually at the very top, it says something about share screen, and one of them is to give permission.
We've done this 100 times, Al. It's just technology in today's world, and we're in the rural area here, so.
Well, so am I, and I understand it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no. Okay, it's not letting me activate you. Hold on.
If it's an issue, I can just say next slide and do it that way, Candace.
It may be easier. It's disabled on my end, and it's decided, I'm sure Zoom has done an update and on our end, and I literally don't even have the option to fix it at this time.
Then if you
let me just.
If you could just take it from the start.
Well, let me just try one more thing here.
Okay, thank you.
Did it give you share screen capabilities now?
It looks like I can go. I think I can. Okay, so let's just try that and see. Yes, it does. So
wonderful. Thank you.
I will do that. And you can give me just a second to open it up. Now, can you see it? Do you see anything on your screen?
Not yet, Al. Thank you.
Okay, then I'm going to have to, I don't know why that didn't give it to me because it should have. Okay, now I know why.
There you go.
Okay,
Something's coming up now. So I can't see everyone's hands here or whatever, but I guess we'll let you finish through your delegation with your 10 minutes there, Al, and then
okay, thank you
there'll
very
possibly
much.
be questions after then, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for having us. As has already been stated, I'm from 4 grandchildren. So I'd like to just say briefly what that entails here. So there are several of us who have been involved here. Personally, my wife, Linda Slavin, who incidentally is a 5-year graduate from Norwood High School many years ago now. We've lived where we are now in Autonomy, South Monaghan for the last 47 years. I taught at Trent for 37 years. Some of that was in the environmental science program. Doug Mason was going to join us today. He's a teacher in Havelock area, but he was called in to teach today, so he's not going to be able to do that. So I'm going to be taking it today. Linda's voice is not very strong, or she would be on this display as well. So For Our Grandchildren is a local climate change action group working with citizens and governments to do 3 things: inform them, inspire them, and motivate them to climate action. And we're here today talking to you because municipalities like yours are the most important contributors worldwide to reducing climate emissions. 4RG does a bunch of things for our grandchildren, and there are 3 examples here. We have monthly public sessions. One of them recently on regenerative farming and climate change, which I'll talk about briefly. Another was on home retrofits, which I'll be talking about. And we had another one on electric vehicles, which are a hot topic, as we know. So I'd like to start by saying that this is not just about climate change. It's about fossil fuel reduction. It is an emergency. And people don't often realize it's a healthy emergency, as many Canadians died in 2020 from breathing fossil fuel emissions as from COVID that year. Children living in homes with gas stoves have a 24% increase with being diagnosed with asthma over their lives. So there's enormous public cost here to fossil fuels. It's an economic emergency. We all know about the damage in BC this year from wildfires and storms. The cost there has been tagged at $7.5 billion. That's $1,500 per BC resident. I got an insurance bill recently and they said costs were going up, and the reason was climate change. It's an environmental emergency. 35% of bird species, 50% of amphibians are threatened with extinction because of climate change. And of course, it's an overall climate emergency. We have to reduce emissions 45% in just 8 years to stay below the 1.5 degrees of warming, at which extreme weather is going to become even more serious. So in 2016, along with all the other townships, the county, the city, and the First Nations in the area, under the Partners for Climate Protection program, passed a climate change action program. And there were 3 milestones they had to get through for that. The first was to create an inventory of where their emissions were, to set reduction targets and develop a local action plan. So that was passed in 2016. Milestones 4 and 5 are ongoing. They are implementing the plan and progressing the results. And in 2016, I point out that your township, Asphodel-Norwood, promised to reduce carbon emissions 25% by 2031. But there's 2 areas over which we have control and are in the climate change action plan. One is municipal or corporate emissions, and they were marked at 818 tons that year, and community emissions were 33,000 tons almost. That's 98% of township emissions. So while the township has been doing a great job on the corporate part of it, it's up to the individuals in the county, the residents, to work on that other 98%. So we want to focus on the community emissions. We've already, as far as corporate emissions are concerned, you're in milestone 5. That's good. That's the sort of the highest level you can get where you're reporting on implementation. It's one of the best in the county. And community emissions are under milestone 4, implementing. We didn't see reporting there, although that may have been done. I also have to point out that although you promised 25% reduction by 2031, overall standards have changed because climate change is getting worse. The federal emission targets are now 45% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030. So we have to always bear that in mind. So one of the things we want to talk about is Climate Caucus. So I'll just introduce this very quickly. The Canadian Federation of Canadian Municipalities, of which you are a member, has a network of 400 local elected climate leaders. These are people such as yourselves or your staff members. And it's an online forum of about 1 hour per month for one person from your municipality to share best practices, learning from other municipalities across Canada for what you can do. So we've got 3 basic requests for you today. The first one is to have somebody from your township, staff, or council join the Climate Caucus for that 1 hour a month to see what the rest of the country is doing that you can do. Secondly, form a joint Citizens Council Climate Emergency Task Force to identify the next steps in milestone 5. We ask that the council citizens be involved because the citizens, you've got people with broad interests here, and they know a lot of things that your council won't know. And when you bring the two together, it's a much more powerful organization. And that's been shown across Canada that works. And of course, you can learn from other township councils. For example, Duro-Dummer has an excellent building efficiency program. So the third request is to educate your citizens about what they can do. And I want to talk about 3 specific items below. So one way to is to send out a flyer along with your tax bills. And this is a flyer which we've actually given to you. It's just a draft copy. We'd be glad to modify this any way that you would like in order to reduce your time as an expense and get it back to you if you would like to hand that out. And this is one of the pieces of information that we've provided to you. You are people, you councillors are people who can influence others, can support these ideas. So the 3 things we want to talk about, the first is regenerative agriculture. And there are examples already in our area, Harley Farms near Keene, Yorkshire Valley Farms near Peterborough, that are heavily involved in regenerative agriculture, though many of the techniques are being used by other farmers as well. Secondly, we have to reduce carbon emissions from our home. It's the 3rd largest source of emissions in Canada, mostly from heating and cooling, and particularly for people who are on heating oil and propane in the rural areas. It's a very inexpensive way to reduce greenhouse gases dramatically. And the third one is a question of recycling industrial plastics like boat wrap and agricultural plastic. We see bales wrapped in plastic all over our area. Where is that plastic going? Production of plastic is about 15% of greenhouse gases in Canada. So regenerative agriculture, there's lots of information, but the kinds of things that are involved are using cover crops that are there between the standard commercial crops. They're left on the fields. They enrich the soil because they bring more carbon into it and they reduce erosion dramatically. No-till systems are being used fairly widely, and they have exactly the same advantages. There are integrating livestock. There are techniques now for rotating cattle, which both enrich the soil and reduce the amount of greenhouse gases dramatically. And we can provide information on that or give you excellent references for doing it. I want to talk about reducing emissions from home. The reason this picture is here because in the lower right is an example of an air source heat pump, which can produce heat, put heat into your home with 4 times the efficiency of baseboard heaters, for example. And there are government assistance for doing this. There are incentives of $600 for every home towards an energy audit, where somebody comes into your home, they go through and they tell the homeowner, this is what you should be doing. This should be your top priority. This is where you're going to save the most money and do the most good. And then on top of that, provided you satisfy certain requirements, there's up to $5,000 in federal money to improve insulation and draft proofing. So that reduces the amount of heat loss from the house, and adding air source heat pumps to replace heating oil and propane. There are 3 studies that I've provided you in the information that I sent out that show that the payback is about 5 years, because air source heat pumps are cheaper than either heating oil or propane, and they have almost 0 greenhouse gas emissions because we have very clean electricity in this province. I also do want to point out, I don't know if this affects you, but Ontario at the moment is trying to expand gas hooks up into rural areas. The cost is $26,000 for every home. These are going to have to be removed in about 10 years to meet meet reduction targets. And it would make enormous sense if Doug Ford subsidized heat pumps instead. Roughly the same efficiencies, but much fewer greenhouse gases. So plastic recycling was another one. And I draw your attention to this company, Switch Energy Corp. What they will do is they will supply farmers with big plastic bags that will hold several hundred pounds of plastic. They charge $5 for a bag, and farmers actually, and then they will come and pick up that bag and take it back for recycling. They don't burn the plastic, they turn it into more plastic so that it reduces emissions. And it's cheaper for the farmers because at the moment, farmers are paying 6.25 cents per pound at the Peterborough landfill to dump their plastic. These are $5 for one of these big bags, and they're recycling. So this is something that all of your farmers should be aware of. There are several farmers in our area using ag wrap, and I'd be glad to provide some names if anybody wants to talk to them about it.
Hey, Alan, we'll get you to finish up your
Okay.
thing there quickly there, please, sir.
Fine. So these basically are three then requests. Have somebody join the Climate Caucus, form the Citizens Council Climate Emergency Task, and educate your citizens on the things that we've been talking about. And of course, listen to our youth. They are the future. I'll skip this one. Thank you for your attention. How can we help you? And we would appreciate if we got to get a written response from Asphodel-Norwood to how you might proceed on some of these requests. Questions?
All right, if you want to unshare your screen there then so we can
I
see
will
the
do
rest
that.
of council, please.
Yep.
Okay, council, we've basically read everything in the agenda, and this was the big part of it from our delegation, Alan. Is there any questions going forward at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, I don't think I really have any questions. Just a couple of comments, and through you, Mayor. Thank you very much for your presentation and the information you provided ahead of time. But I guess mainly a comment on the agriculture. Certainly, you talked about a number of things, and I am involved in the ag community, and I think every farm that I know does do the cover crops and the some form of no-till systems and rotating crops and the livestock integration, and many of these have environmental farm plans. They have, when they buy new equipment, they're the 4-tier tractors, which have the strictest EPA standards. They have GIS and GPS precision planting and input. So I think in a lot of ways, agriculture is somewhat leading the way. There's always room for improvement. There is in every industry, but I do think our farmers are really doing a good job, because if you don't, you're not in business very long. And it is up to the farmer to protect their land and their business. So that was just a comment. And I know with the plastics, I know there are a number of farmers, particularly dairy farmers in our township, who do recycle the bale plastic. It may not be Switch, because I know they have a bin, like a metal bin that they can put it in, and then they can compress it, and then it gets picked up once or twice a year. So I do know that is happening as well. So not really a question, but just a comment on the agricultural end. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Let me just comment that I understand for farmers, the land is your business, and you have to care about the land, and farmers do care about the land. We were at a conference a couple of years ago in Coburg, and at that point I talked to a farmer in the area, and he said he thought probably 10% perhaps of farmers were using regenerative agricultural techniques. Now that may have changed dramatically over 2 years, and I'm glad to hear what you say.
All right, thank you. Councillor Ware, I seen your hand, please.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. I just had a question about like energy efficiency in a home and switching to something like an air source heat pump. My understanding is they sometimes don't work after -20. And after this harsh winter that we've just experienced, how would that be impactful when you're trying to heat your house, but you can't get enough energy out of like an air source heat pump? And I don't know anything about them. This is a question.
So the technology has improved dramatically in the last few years. They're now good down to at least minus 25 Celsius. And at least I know where we live, I think we only had 1 or 2 years at most that were down below minus 25 in our house. They do recommend some kind of a backup system. And that backup system can, for example, just be an electric heater, which is in your, it depends. If you've got forced air, for example, it can be an electric heater in the plenum of your forced air system. Or you could have a couple of space heaters for that 1 or 2 days a year that you actually hit minus 25.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I have a comment too. I just want to let you know, Alan, we're really striving to get the busing brought out this way from the city of Peterborough. Really pushing that through Havelock, all the way to Havelock through Norwood, possibly through Duro-Dummer and maybe OSM too down that way. So we're working on that to try to reduce emissions for people having to commute, because a bus can handle what, 50 people compared to cars. That saves a lot of cars on the road. And also our township is also looking into buying an electric car for some staff in our township office. So we're really thinking outside the box here and trying to do the right thing. So
that's great. I appreciate the transportation. Transportation is the second largest emitter of greenhouse gases in Canada. So anything you can do to get people out of cars and onto buses is wonderful.
Well, the next time you're out and about in Peterborough, mention it to them that Asphodel-Norwood is really interested. Thank you. All right, Deputy Mayor Burt, I see your hand, please.
Yeah, I just thought it might be helpful. Well, either Barry or Roger, you're both on the Lions Club, and I know that that club is doing some environmental-based projects coming up this spring. Now might be a good time to review that with us, because it is certainly is a community project.
Barry, you want to talk about that? You're muted, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I can speak to that. Yeah, we got 2 environmental projects that'll be happening here this spring. First one is a tree planting opportunity for people in the community to be able to purchase a nursery grade tree, 6 different varieties. All the information is on the Norwood Lions Facebook page. And that'll be pre-ordering up till the middle of May. And then the second opportunity, and again, one that we're repeating from last year, is the opportunity for residents to purchase a rain barrel. So these are recycled rain barrels that come from a company down around Hamilton. Last year, I think Ryan Roger helped me out. We sold over 150 rain barrels in the community. That program will be back. It'll be announced again as well through the Norwood Lions Facebook page in the next few days. And that will be a June opportunity for people to come into our village, prepay and pick up a recycled rain barrel to collect rainwater for use at home. So again, just 2 projects by our local Lions Club.
Yeah, it has a screen in the top and one thing after another to stop the mosquito growth, and one thing that way, and a T handle at the bottom to take water out of the barrel if it's too full, and one thing after another that way. So we're thinking outside the box, Alan, that's for sure.
Well, that's wonderful. And the heat pump thing is something which really is a big payback for your citizens, and I hope that you can help make them aware of that. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, so for this delegation, then council will ask for recommendation that we receive the presentation from Alan Slavin on for our grandchildren. So I need a motion, please. A motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, thank you very much, Alan, and we'll catch up with you again sometime. All right, next on the agenda then is staff and committee reports. So R3, Ed Whitmore, I see he's with us here, our Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator. And this is regarding a cancellation certificate C-1-22 Hurley. Mr. Whitmore, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So this is the first time that we've done a cancellation certificate, and to my knowledge, it's the first time Peterborough County has done a cancellation certificate. What it is that you merge 2 properties together and they become one. So it just is a reverse severance. So instead of taking a large parcel and splitting it, you're taking those two previously severed parcels and putting them back together. Okay, so cancellation certificate C-1-22 was made by the owner's solicitor, Wallace J. Brown, on behalf of Mr. Curley. It's applicable to the lands at 1409 South Curley Lane, and they will join with 1410 South Curley Lane. The purpose of it is to cancel that severance, and it was granted back in 1977. The application was applied for in 76 and granted in 1977. So this will reverse that. You'll create one parcel of land. How this all came about was that the owner wanted to do renovations to his cottage and ended up, he was going to put in a brand new septic system through the health unit. And 1409 South Curley Lane is zoned environmental impact or environmental protection. And the 1410, which he owns as well, is a bit higher ground. So some of it is environmental protection and limited service residential. So the health unit won't issue a septic permit unless it's on your own property. So that's why he's going for this, so that he can put a brand new septic system in on the limited service residential high ground. That's going to take care of his existing cottage. And we've attached the notice of cancellation certificate from the county. The application itself is just kind of a mocked up severance application. And I put in a copy of the GIS map just so that you could see how these two properties kind of line up. And the municipal appraisal form, I've got that completed just to show you that most of it's not applicable because that's the form that you use for consent. And what it does, it just has that they've asked us to complete a municipal appraisal form on behalf of council, either recommend or not recommend, and we recommend it because it just makes good planning that he joins the two properties together. He can get rid of his right now he has a holding tank for his septic system, and so this will allow him to have a proper septic system down there. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Pretty straightforward. It makes sense to me anyways. Council, any questions on this particular item? All right, then thank you. Then we'll look for a recommendation that we accept this report for information. And then that, as council, we direct staff to provide the municipal appraisal form to the County of Peterborough Land Division. Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Ward. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor then. And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed.
You're welcome.
Good report.
Thank you.
Okay, R4, Candace, I know you're having technical difficulties on your end, so if you have to blank out for a minute, that'd be fine. But R4, Candace White, our CEO, Clerk Treasurer, this is regarding the Peterborough County ORV Executive Summary. Candace, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is an update to council. We've been kind of working our way through this process for approximately the last year or so. The Peterborough County has released its executive summary, which is basically the results of the consultant company that has been overseeing the use of ORVs on county-owned roads. So what I have done is I've summarized and tried to provide council with the impact of the summary on Asphodel-Norwood and what this means. To start off, it's important to remember that Peterborough County is in the exact opposite position as the lower tiers when it comes to the legislation. The change in the legislation that came into effect in July of last year basically means that we have to adopt a bylaw to prohibit the use, because basically the prohibit was lifted from the province, where the county is in the exact opposite position. So it's prohibited unless they pass a bylaw to allow. So the exact opposite, which makes the nuances in ensuring that the education to the public is a little bit more difficult. But as of right now, there is no ORVs or ATVs allowed on county roads. Where right now, because we don't have a bylaw in place prohibiting it, they are allowed on township owned roads. So there is a bit of a nuance there. So Peterborough County initiated a study into the use of ORVs on county roads in July of 2020, and this was in conjunction with their county transportation master plan. They adopted a six-stage approach, and they're in stage 5 of the process. At this stage, the county representatives have conducted initial engagement. So they've identified potential approaches. They've consulted with lower tiers, First Nations, and the public. Part of that consultation included a meeting with township staff. We met and we discussed with county staff and the consultant the approach for Asphodel-Norwood. Based on the initial assessment, they are recommending a hybrid approach to ORV use in the county, meaning allow ORVs on certain roads that meet predetermined quantitative and qualitative assessment criteria. So instead of using the carte blanche approach where they're going to blanket the entire county and say they're allowed everywhere, or the exact opposite, saying we're not going to allow any, they're taking this down the middle of the road approach and trying to come up with a hybrid approach that will satisfy all the municipalities and what they would like to see in their individual boundaries. The following quantitative criteria was used to evaluate each road segment. So they looked at traffic volumes, speeding, posted speed limit, what the road surface of the road was, truck utilization, and history of ORV collisions. There's further detailed criteria at page 9 in the summary if council would like to take a deeper look. If a road scored 50% or higher, then they moved on to the next stage of the process, which means they were considered. Didn't mean they automatically went to the final approval stage. It just means that they weren't eliminated at that part of the process. So when you were to look at just that criteria alone, all of the county roads within Asphodel-Norwood boundaries reached a percentage of 50% higher as a score, which means they all went to the next step of assessment. They made it through basically the first round of criteria. A map showing the various scores for all county roads was available on page 11 of the summary. So if any of the public watching or council wants to take a boo at what that shows, it's on page 11. So then based on the quantitative scoring, so we looked at connecting to existing ORVs, connectivity to trails, population centers, noise sensitive land uses, suitable road shoulders, driver's road violation expectation, and avoidance, of course, of sidewalks and multi-use shoulders. After all factors were taken into consideration, Peterborough County has put forward the following county roads for additional comment. So County Road 2, for the entire duration, so right from the western boundary with Otonabee South Monaghan, right through to the edge of the village of Hastings, so it would come right into our border. And then obviously Northumberland County and the municipality of Trent Hills does take over, and they have their own bylaw governing ORV and ATV use in their boundaries. County Road 45 from the township's southern boundary to County Road 42. So again, that's going to pick up the southern boundary where we hit the municipality of Trent Hills. It has a blanket bylaw that allows them. We'll pick them up and it'll run right into County Road 42 and it stops there. Again, that comes into play where they are not going to allow ATV and ORVs in the villages on county roads that are in an urban setting. So it stops at 42. It doesn't keep going. Allowed on County Road 42 in its entirety within the Asphodel-Norwood boundaries, and then Dummer Asphodel Boundary Road. You'll see that it does catch County Road 40, but it doesn't really catch it in our boundaries. It really catches County Road 40 and Duro-Dummer's boundary, because again, right where the boundary road comes out, they consider anything to the south of that urban. So then they would catch 40 really in Duro-Dummer. They are also not recommending County Road 38, and then we just discussed County Road 45 within the village. On July 27, 2021, Council considered a draft ORV bylaw based on public comments, which I highlighted again in the staff report. I know you've seen it before, but just as a refresher, so you didn't have to go searching for it. As you know, we had 500 and some responses in regards to that. And we've had a lot of public engagement on both sides of the discussion. So we know what the public is wanting to see. And we put that bylaw on hold, waiting for Peterborough County to make a decision as to what approach they were going to take to county roads, as the OPP have made it quite clear that they were hoping for some sort of standardization across each municipality, not meaning across the entire county, but more so within each municipal boundary. So if the county's going one way, they would like to see the township to marry up and match that. So when they're enforcing within our boundaries, it's a bit of an easier approach for them for enforcement purposes. We have reached out to Peterborough Public Health as other stakeholder responses are concerned. Again, they are still have not shifted out of modified duties due to the pandemic, so they are not providing comment on items such as this, as traditionally they would. Obviously, Peterborough County is working towards having their bylaw in place, hopefully mid-2022, unless the mayor and deputy mayor have received a more recent update that they can provide to us. OPP, we had their presentation on June 8th of 2021. So we know where the OPP stands. Township insurers, no increase to insurance is expected by adopting a bylaw to allow ORVs on township county roads. Premiums are driven by claim history and market factors. So therefore, this may change depending on those factors, but just by simply adopting the bylaw, it doesn't actually drive, there's not a link to the premium there. So again, the executive summary is attached for council's consideration. Under finance, I did pose this question to the OPP. I found this part of the executive summary of Peterborough County a bit shocking. There's a huge range there. So they're saying that it could have a potential cost of $600,000 to $600,000 annually across the entire county by adopting a bylaw to allow ORVs on county and municipal roads. I have, as I said, I wanted just to speak to OPP because that is not the message that we have been receiving at the lower tier level, as far as they enforce our bylaws. If they, if there's an ATV on County Road 38 and they're not supposed to be and they get stopped, I don't see that causing an impact to the township's premiums or rates. I would think it would have to be a pretty significant, severe pattern, no different than any of our other bylaws, whether they're helping us when we had a bylaw in place for the Trent River access points, whether it's our noise bylaw. I would like to hear what the OPP has to say, and then I will pass it on to council, of course, before we consider adoption of our bylaw. But I'm struggling with, that is a huge range to begin with. It could fall anywhere in between there countywide. And if you look at it, if it's at the lower end, 60,000, 8 municipalities, you're looking at about 7,500 a year a piece. Not really astronomical, but if you start looking at the higher end, obviously that becomes a bit more of a concern, and that's just not the message we've been hearing from the OPP through earlier discussion. So just want to make sure nothing has changed before we make our own decision. Obviously, the cost of upgrades to county roads to accommodate the implementation of the bylaw, such as shoulder improvements, signage, education, et cetera, will all be borne by the county on their roads. Obviously, we would be responsible for anything that we put in place based on our own bylaw. So I will leave it with council for any questions, and so we can have a discussion about next steps.
Thank you, Candace. Yeah, that's pretty deep. And like you said, there's people that are interested and some people are not interested at all in this. Council open for discussion, comments, concerns, questions. We have to send some form of comments back to Peterborough County anyway, so now's our time to have another discussion. Councillor Ward, please.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. I think this is a nice approach. As we know, we did have a lot of respondents to the survey. I think it's a starting point for sure. Just, to see how they're going to be on how safe.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, concerns? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Again, I'm in alignment to what Councillor Walsh said. I think we got a good mix of roads to allow people to move from township to township. And that still allows us to work within our own municipality to allow ORVs to come into our town to say get food and gas, because they can use local municipal roads versus county roads. County Road 38 makes sense. It's a busy road to not be on it. I guess the only thing would be with this is, I go back to what Candace had mentioned regarding the OPP report, is, you know, we kind of got a mix of county roads that we're going to be on and not on. And is that going to become a little bit challenging for them to be able to enforce it? It would be nice to get their feedback on that, because we're not opening every county, you know, the county roads, not every one of them are going to be eligible for these vehicles. So it would be interesting to kind of get their feedback, as well as the costing feedback.
I will get all of that and report back.
Yeah.
Just to say about that, the OPP will handle any ATVs or whatever under the municipal, not the municipal act, but the Highway Traffic Act. So, and then ORVs are supposed to be at a certain speed compared to what the road's supposed to be, the percentages there, and one thing after another. It's educating the people, but they have to be also licensed drivers too to drive. So,
yeah,
you know that. But, Deputy Mayor Burt, did I see your hand? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did. Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, that was my question actually, that Barry just asked about the hybrid approach in the county. What the OPP thought about the enforcement with the hybrid approach. I do agree with Barry about County Road 38, particularly south of Highway 7, with the gravel pit being there. There's a lot of big trucks that travel that, you know, every few minutes, which I'm sure I don't have to let Councillor Walsh and Councillor War know, as they live on that road. So, but obviously that also includes 38 North. And just for clarification, that would be 38 North all the way into Warsaw. Do you know that offhand, Candace?
No, but I will take a look here on the mapping and see if I can
Okay.
get an answer
Okay.
on that.
Yeah, I looked in my mapping. Hard to see online. So that was just a question, but what else? Oh, regarding the cost to enforce, I remember a few years ago when ATVs were not allowed on roads, and I know we would be out with ATVs for the farm and that sort of thing. And we have been stopped before in the past by the OPP. And I remember a couple of times, you know, everything was fine. We're licensed, we had our helmets. There were no issues and no charges at all. But I remember on both occasions that the OPP had stated about the cost of enforcement at that time, because they were spending so much time stopping four-wheelers or ATVs. Many of them in this area were farmers, you know, going from one farm to another and that sort of thing. So they were at that time looking forward to having something in place where they were looking forward to not having to stop people unless it was necessary. If you have a helmet on, you're licensed, you're following the rules of the road, and they found it more time consuming to do the stop, Sam. So I think we're moving in the right direction. There will always be those who push the limits and do break the rules and the rules of the road, but I think we're going in the right direction. At every time it comes to county, I always push the education piece, because I think that's huge, is letting people know what the rules are. So I think a chunk of money does need to be spent on the education piece from the county. So not really any questions other than the County Road 38 North, and we'll see where this goes. And hopefully we can, as a township, incorporate our roads into the bylaw.
Candace, any follow-up on that?
Yeah, so County Road 38 North is also exempt right into Warsaw. It looks like it gets picked up again coming out on the north side,
Okay.
Way north, but right from the intersection of 38 and 7 North straight up to Warsaw is not allowed.
Okay.
So it's same, it's happening in our boundaries. So there is recommendations that the county has provided in their executive summary on page 19 of the report. So I think what they're looking for and what would be helpful to them to get this moved forward would be for us to take a look at a recommendation as to whether we support alternative 2, which is of course a hybrid approach versus all in or all out. Whether we support the draft mapping of the roads that they are allowing them in. So that would be included in the recommendation. And anything else, maybe we could just maybe support any education as well, as per Deputy Mayor Burt's comment. We could loop that into the motion if you'd like as well. But we need to have a bit more to the motion than just receive. They are looking for some feedback from all the lower tiers. So I will leave it for council to discuss.
Okay, council, you've heard some of the recommendations. Anybody want to put a motion together on that or more discussion? Okay, so then Candace, if you want to help us with that, okay, Deputy Mayor Burt, go ahead.
Sorry, I can try to put a motion that a motion go forward to the county to accept alternative 2, allow RRV on some county roads, and accepting the suggestion that was contained in the report to our township on March 22nd. I won't go into the details there. And then to also support the ongoing initializing, not sure how you want to say it, of an education component to the public in regards to the bylaw. And anybody can add to that if they'd like.
Yeah, we might need some critiquing on that. Candace, any thoughts?
Maybe just a thought in the public education piece that they would consult with the lower tiers so that it can be utilized through our channels. I sometimes find there's a bit of a gap there. So just utilizing the lower tiers. Do you want the specific, we'll label the roads out that are going to be in Asphodel-Norwood. Like we will actually spell out in the motion, the roads.
Okay, yeah, they're stated in the report. So I would assume it's just a copy and paste from the report. Okay.
Right, does anybody else, so is that your motion then, Deputy Mayor Burt? I guess that was your motion then?
Yep.
Okay, everybody clear basically on the motion? That's what basic was in the report, plus the education part, so I need a seconder then, please. All right, Councillor Ward, is there any other discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor then. And that's carried, thank you. Okay, we still have a few minutes before our public meeting. So I guess Candace will start with R5 then, and then we may have to stop if it turns to be 2 o'clock here. So, okay. And R5 is 2021 year-end financial variance, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So as council is aware, quarterly, the treasurer provides a quarterly financial variance update to Township Council to be able to detail the financial status of the corporation. This is the year-end variance, so we take a look in detail at each department. As you can see, each department has been spelled out in the staff report that each department has landed within budget, except for the Planning and Economic Development Department. Again, that falls into the Planning Department, which is the legal fees for the ongoing Ontario Land Tribunal case. So we are slightly over budget in that department, just solely due to that reason. If that was to be removed from the general ledger that's been provided to council, then every department would have fallen within the 2021 budget. The financial position of the township is strong and viable. We've been able to make our budgeted transfers to reserves as expected. And of course, the anticipated surplus at the end of the year will be allocated to reserves once the final audit is complete. Because obviously the auditors need to give their 2 cents into the 2021 year. And once that is determined, then the final transfers to reserves for surplus will take place. In your agenda package, you have a detailed account of the general ledgers for the year end, so you can actually see what from the capital to operating, the differences and where we landed, as well as I did include the library budget in there as well as the Village of Norwood's water and sewer budgets and their variances, as well as the Trentview Estates water and their variance. As you can see, all of the utilities, so water and sanitary, is sitting in a surplus position prior to the audit. So I do suspect a transfer to reserves for those departments as well. So all in all, regardless of, obviously there was impact to the pandemic in regards to capital construction, but we were able to move forward with 95% of what we had planned, as well as to be able to curb expenditures and absorb all of the pandemic costs in with the COVID-19 relief fund money that we received from the province. So we were able to keep all of those costs within that funding agreement, which was great and appreciated. So thank you to the province for that. And of course, ongoing in 2022, the surplus will be able to finance some capital projects that are coming up. As you know, the asset management plan continues to tell us where our deficits are, and of course, water and sanitary infrastructure to be able to deal with the growth seems to be able to be absorbed with the development charges, which is costing the ratepayer and the users of Norwood and sanitary systems no money on their rates. For any growth related expenditures. It's all being covered by the development charges. So that is also a good news story. That said, the next report, I suspect after our council meeting, we will chat about the annual development charge summary, which I'll be able to give further detail. But Mayor, I think that's it at a high level, unless council wants to get into a further discussion into particular departments or general ledgers as to what's been going on in the departments. I'll answer those, but I'll leave it with council for any questions.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, that made for some good reading, and it's always a good news story when we're doing well. So any questions on this report at this time? And we have a couple minutes before our public meeting. So any questions, Council? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Just a comment and then one question. Certainly with we had pretty big capital projects in 2021 and with COVID constant changes, I think we certainly ended up in good shape. So certainly hats off to staff and everyone who worked so hard to get all those things done. It wasn't an easy year by any stretch, but the bottom line is it looks good moving into 2022. You'd mentioned LPAT, and I did notice that in the report. So those costs that we encountered for 2021, that obviously doesn't include any costs go into 2022. That will be in the next variance report for 2022, correct? Just a clarification.
Yes, it'll be included in the first quarter, and we are splitting the cost with Peterborough County, but it will be substantial.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from council at this time? All right, seeing no hands, I just want to also say good work on behalf of council to staff. Keep up the good work, and thank you very much for your diligence on bringing us in under budget, I guess, basically is where we're at right now. So it's a good job. Well done to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll pass it on to the managers.
Yep. All right. So the recommendation then for this motion today would be that we receive this report regarding the 2021 year-end financial variance for information, and that we approve allocating the 2021 operating surplus to reserves. Who would like to make that motion? Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Walsh. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Council. It looks like it's going to be 2 o'clock here shortly. So what I'll do at this time then is I'll ask for another motion then to suspend our regular council meeting of today to enter into a public meeting for Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 at 2 p.m. So I'd like a motion, please, by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Archer. All in favor? Thank you, carried. All right, so today's meeting on this public meeting, I want to thank everyone for coming. I know we have some guests here. We have Ian Mudd from the county. We also have Councillor Jim Whalen from North Kawartha. Hello, Jim. Nice to see you, sir. And he's our representative through Peterborough County, so that Ian does a good job. So he'll report back. There you go. So I'll just do some introductory here. So I'll do a bit of reading. The Corporation of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood will enter into this public meeting at 2 p.m., which is now for today, to consider an application for a part of plan of subdivision in accordance with sections 51:17 and 51:19.4 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended. Also, it states that any person may attend the electronic or virtual public meeting and make written and or verbal submissions either in support of or in opposition to the proposed plan of subdivision. Please contact the municipal office a minimum of 24 hours in advance of the meeting to pre-register. So once again, thank you everyone for coming. Those of you who may be tuned in via YouTube or the pre-recorded version that we'll have out onto the public after the meeting. So welcome guests. A declaration of pecuniary interest at this time. Any councillor members? Seeing no hands, thank you. I'm looking then for an approval of the agenda, please. Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. All right, Ian, I'll leave it up to you for the notification and the overview and your presentation, I guess, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good afternoon, members of council and staff. Before I get into the application here, just a bit about our process here at the county. As the mayor has already noted, we have Jim Whalen present with us. He's a member of county council and he's one of our planning reps. And what we have at the county level is we're the approval authority for plans of subdivision, but we recognize the local importance of you being able to deal with public interest at your level with respect to any development. So what county council did a number of years ago when we were provided approval authority from the province is that we determined it was probably best to have the public meeting at the township level so that you can hear concerns from your residents if there are any. So what we do is we have our council appointee from county council also attend that meeting so that they can preside over the discussion and report back to county council when our department will ultimately bring a report to county council recommending support or denial of a particular application. So that's the purpose of Mr. Whalen here today, and I thank him for attending. Short drive for him, but anyway, thanks Jim for attending. So notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act. This application relates to file 15T 21004, and it relates to 22 Birch Street. And the application was made by Maple Avenue Estates. The application was deemed complete on April 22nd, 2021. In support of the application was a functional servicing review report, a planning justification report, as well as a stormwater management report. The entire site is 0.727 of an acre, and there are 4 residential lots proposed, and these lots will be on full services, water and sewer, municipal water and sewer. Lots 1 and 2 will front onto Maple Avenue, and lots 3 and 4 will front onto Birch Street. Lot 3 will contain the existing residence, and I should note that these lands are left over from previous development when Maple Avenue East was developed. The previous property owner, his home was on lot 3, and he retained this the rest of this property. And so now we've got a new owner, and they are looking at developing this into 4 residential lots. The lots will range in size from 0.128 of an acre to 0.248 of an acre in size, which is generally a fully serviced lot size within your municipality. We circulated the application to the required agencies in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. We did receive comments back from Enbridge. They had no objection. Hydro One had no objection. Tonabee Region Conservation Authority has no objection, subject to some standard conditions being imposed at the draft plan stage. The Kawartha KPR DSB school board, public school board, they had no objections, subject to some standard conditions being imposed at the draft plan stage. And we did receive draft plan conditions from township staff with respect to what they would like to see as conditions related to this particular development. We did receive one letter from Glenn and Karen Thompson, who are neighbors on Maple Avenue East. They live in one of the new homes that were built in the subdivision at the time. They have identified some concerns with respect to a mature maple tree that potentially may have to be cut down to allow for access to one of the lots. They've also cited a concern with the amount of space available to get driveways into the two properties that are proposed on Maple Avenue East. Now, I did look at the municipal zoning bylaw, and there is just essentially following up with answering their question here. Under section 3.24 subsection F of your bylaw does allow for a minimum driveway width of 3 meters, so that can be accommodated on the site of these two lots, or if it's along a common lot line, so the driveways would abut, that can take place as long as the overall width can exceed 9 meters. So I think driveways can be put in accordance with your bylaw for these two lots. Again, I'm not sure if the birch tree that the Thompsons are concerned with will need to be removed or not. There was concern regarding the stormwater management brief that was presented dealing with stormwater runoff from the site. So that has been looked at with respect to the engineering on the site, and your chief building official, as you know, has an obligation under the building code to ensure that when he issues a building permit that you don't flood out your neighbor. So that is also undertaken through the building permit stage. And the last item that was of concern of the Thompsons was the issue of snow removal in the winter months. I think it sounds as they've noted in their letter that right now the snow is plowed into the cul-de-sac and there's a large pile accumulating in front of these lots every year. And I don't know if possibly Candace wanted to speak to that issue, but I would imagine that with the road, once it's in the municipal system, that the obviously your roads department would be responsible for the snow maintenance.
Yes, that's correct. Unfortunately, that cul-de-sac isn't the size that we would traditionally see in an approved subdivision today. So the deficient size has made snow removal in that cul-de-sac a challenge regardless of the numbers of driveways that are on it. So we do need to use a different piece of equipment to plow that area of the village. And so that'll continue, and we'll have to move the snow down to probably the end of Spruce Street is what where we're thinking that it'll go. But yes, snow removal will be addressed by the township staff.
Thank you. So the last comment that the Thompsons had was just a concern that there was one lateral that was put in the street, recognizing that only one lot would be created off of Maple Avenue when the original subdivision was done on Maple Avenue. Since that time, obviously, we've got the introduction of the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and it does look at intensifying where possible in our service settlement areas. So obviously, we're going from one oversized large lot. We're intensifying in this area, which is in conformity with the growth plan. So the laterals that are in place, there will need to be some road works, I believe, to put in another lateral, but the lot sizes conform with your bylaw. Rezoning may be required as part of the draft plan conditions, but this is intensification. It's what we are looking for to satisfy the growth plan. It is on full municipal services, and that is something that we support at the county level. So subject to any questions of council, that is an overview of the development, and happy to answer any questions of council or the public if there's any additional questions raised.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Council, any questions on this report at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, no, I think you just answered that. I had written the question down when it came to the intensification rates, that this infilling of 1 home to 4 is exactly what the province is looking for, right? So I just wanted to make sure that does cover our intensification purpose as we go through. So thank you for addressing that. And I guess in response to the comments from the Thompson family, and certainly we address this at every stage, whether it's a new lot or a new subdivision, is a removal of trees, and we do have the policy in place where if a tree comes down in the township, on township property at least, there is another one that goes up. But it is, working in the construction field for 30+ years, most contractors do their darndest to keep trees when they can, but sometimes it is hard to do. So, and likely that won't be known until the time of construction. So I don't really have any other questions, just those comments. So thank you.
All right, any other questions from council at this time? Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Again, just along the same line as the Deputy Mayor, having read through the package and reading the Thompson's letter and some of their concerns. Thank you very much, Ian, for addressing those. I think we certainly are within reason in terms of how we're addressing them. And yeah, the trees is a tough one, but I'm aligned with Deputy Mayor Burt. I'm sure the developer will do everything possible, but we may not be able to save every tree, but that's unfortunately sometimes what happens.
Councillor Ward,
yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. I just had a question about the difference in the lot sizes on Birch Street. Is there existing infrastructure underground that is the reason for the one being smaller, or are we just trying to keep the driveway intact on block 3?
To you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I believe because of the existing residence and the driveway location, that they were trying not to alter any of the existing infrastructure to that particular home, and that's why it was a little oversized.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
if anybody from the city goes to buy it, it's going to be too much grass for them anyways, I'm sure. Anyways, so just to keep in accordance with how we do the public meeting, we have a meeting of record, basically. So I'll ask the clerk then if there's anyone in the public at this time that would like to speak in support of the motion or of the report. Is there anyone here?
Yes, Mayor, we do have David McKay, who did write into the township requesting the opportunity to speak in regards to the application. So he's been brought into the meeting. He is from MHBC Planning and represents the property owner.
Okay, David, if you want to put your screen on, if you're able to, that'd be great. Or if you can't, technical problems, you can go ahead and speak in support of this act.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, for some reason, my camera's not coming on. I'm not sure if it's the way it was set up. In any event, thank you for having me this afternoon. We are in support of the recommendation. As noted by Mr. Mudd and Ms. White, we have been working diligently with all of the various agencies to resolve the various comments and concerns. And that includes servicing, it includes the stormwater management, as well as dealing with snow removal, for example, as well. And as Mr. Mudd had mentioned, this proposal will create 4 lots where one exists today in accordance with provincial policy as well as county policy to intensify within the existing built boundary. As Councillor Ward had asked, the one oversized lot is to accommodate that existing driveway. We wanted to keep that in untouched as much as possible, but all of the lots do meet the zoning requirements, and there is sufficient room to provide for a well-appointed house as well as driveway and landscaped area on the property. We will work obviously with township staff through the detailed design process at the, for the draft plan of subdivision to clear those conditions, as well as at building permit stage to try to accommodate the concerns of the Thompsons in terms of the obviously drainage for sure, but also services as well as the driveway locations to minimize impact on the existing vegetation as much as possible. And I'd happy to answer any questions that council may have, and request your support. Thank you.
Council, we've heard basically everything from Ian Mudd there. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns for Mr. McKay? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else, Candace? I'll ask twice and 3 times more if there's anyone in support of this.
We do have other attendees. I'll just ask them if they'd like to raise their hand if they wish to speak. I won't necessarily call them all out. If they would like to speak, please raise your hand and we will allow you the opportunity to do so.
So that's at the bottom of your screen. Who's ever's watching, we don't know who you are, but if there's a little icon down there. You hit that and then Candace will be able to let you know if she sees your hand.
No hands are being raised, Mayor.
All right, then I'll ask then, is there anyone that doesn't want to see this happen at this time? I'll ask once, I'll ask twice, I'll ask 3 times. Any hands, Candace?
No hands,
All right.
Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, then. So I think to be proper and legal here, I'd have to read the right to appeal. No, that's fine. Thank you for saving me all that speech. And then any persons that need to be notified, written requests, of course. All right, so then we're looking for a motion then, council, so that the recommendation that we, sounds like we're going to support the complete application of the subdivision located at 22 Birch Street, Norwood, and further that the council of the township of Asphodel-Norwood support the draft plan conditions as presented. Motioned by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Archer. Any other discussions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. And Jim, very nice to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day, everybody.
All right, you guys take care. And to the public that might be tuned in, thank you for joining us. And we'll be going back shortly to our regular council meeting. So stay with us if you'd like. So I need a motion then to adjourn the public meeting held today, March 22nd, 2022, and it's going to be adjourned at 2:17 p.m. and that we go back into our regular meeting of council, please. Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Very good meeting. All right, then, R6, Candace, would be 2021 annual development charge summary, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So as under bylaw 2018-57, the treasurer of the township needs to provide an annual statement to council on or before the 31st of May for the preceding calendar year for each development charge reserve fund. We only have one. You can see the 2021 allocations from the development charge reserves detailed below. We have transferred over $496,209.63 in transportation for growth related expenditures. So anything that is growth related, so aquifer capacity study, offsite sanitary works, also to the library for the portion of the Norwood Library Hub. That motion was approved by the library board a couple of years ago now, pre-COVID, for approximately $60,000. Stormwater management, again, aquifer capacity studies for a total 2021 allocation out of the fund of $682,000 approximately, which leaves a balance still of $940,279.71. Of that, approximately $500,000 is accounted for in continuing in the sanitary replacement project. So that's ongoing. You can see in the statement of accounts in the spreadsheet that was provided, how the 940,000 is broken out into each specific area. So again, to remind council, the specific area charge is specifically only for the village of Norwood. It's an urban area charge. Obviously, there's no street light, sidewalks, and stormwater in the rural areas. So the DCs for street light, sidewalks, and stormwater management do not apply for a rural building permit, only in the urban setting. So you can see we've got in streetlights and sidewalk, we did deplete the fund for stormwater for the aquifer capacity study. And you can see across the library still has, approximately $22,000 to utilize, right down through recreation. We may be pulling on that for skateboard park, as we may need that for that, or the fitness center. As we know, it had come in slightly over budget when we tendered it. So we do have those funds available to us to pull in regards to that new asset. So again, grand total 940,000 coming into 2022. Staff does not suspect to see a huge allocation into the DC fund in 2022 because we're in a build year. So all the building permits for Norwood Park Phase 3 have been issued. So all of the DCs have been collected for Phase 3. So they all hit to 2021. Obviously now they need to build those houses out. As we know, there is other growth happening, whether that's Norwood Park Phase 4, whether that is Mill Street, et cetera. They are still in the planning stages. We're not going to be to building permit stage at all, not even close for 2022 to be being able to collect DCs for those developments. You will probably see Norwood Park Phase 4 online and building permits being taken out and DCs collected, of course, in 2023, which then, of course, in 2024 would be the build out year. So it's kind of every other year you see a big influx into the DC fund. Fortunately, the good news for this is we've been able to stay ahead of the growth. As I stated in the year-end variance report, all growth-related expenditures have been funded through the development charges. The tax base has not seen any impact at all, and neither has the users of the Norwood water or sanitary systems. So that is a good news story from township staff perspective. I will leave it to council if you have any specific questions.
Thank you, Candace. Council, at this time, any questions of Candace? All right, pretty straightforward. Thank you for the good news. So
Welcome.
the recommendation on R6 then would be that we receive this for information. Motioned by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Ward. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. R7 then, Candace White, our CAO Clerk Treasurer. This is regarding the management action list.
Thank you, Mayor. So upcoming on April 12th, there's going to be an update to the procedural bylaw. That is going to be some housekeeping items, doing a thorough review of it. So we'll be able to take a look at some items that have been kind of lingering there that we need to update. But the reason it's driving the overall update of the document itself is going to the hybrid meetings and having to ensure that our procedural bylaw allows for us to address, counselors attending meetings remotely. What's the process of that? There's a bunch of nuances in regards to it. I'd love to be able to say that it's once we decide, we can just go, but there's some homework that we have to do. So the procedural bylaw will come forward to the next meeting in anticipation for the April 26th to be the first in-person meeting as discussed at our last meeting. We can chat about the in-person council meetings. I will probably put the procedural bylaw and the in-person council meeting report in the same report. I don't think they need to be separated out. This in-person council meeting report was added to the agenda back when we had COVID regulations that if we were to go to in-person while we still had physical distancing, masking, and all of the requirements for the number of people within a room, et cetera, then we would have had to have a detailed plan to go back into in-person meetings. As we all know, as of yesterday, pretty much we're not a medical institute, so pretty much every regulation has been lifted. So there's really not a detailed staff report needed to how we'll run the in-person meetings. It'll be more hinged to the procedural bylaw update. So I'll put those two reports together. The preliminary development agreement for the Fife lands, I suspect that'll be bumped So what happened there? There was a pre-consultation brought forward by the developer. I think it was pre-con number 3 or 4 for this site, and it hasn't really moved on past that stage. The first stage out of the gate, of course, is a preliminary development agreement, as this township growth is supposed to pay for growth. And so we need to get those securities to pay for peer review. So once we get some assurances from the county that they are going to move on past the pre-con stage, then that preliminary development agreement will come forward. Timing is unknown, so it may be bumped, it may come. Stay tuned. Norwood drinking water inspection results will come forward. Gravel crushing tender results, that tender's out, so it'll come forward. We'll be looking, I suspect this subdivision agreement for 22 Birch Street won't come till the end of April, beginning of May. I suspect they've got to satisfy some draft plan conditions. So we'd have to have some pretty in-depth conversations in regards to stormwater management and some other things. They're pretty close, but it may not be by the 12th, but it's coming shortly. Stop sign bylaw for Norwood Park Phase 1 and Phase 2. We are releasing public engagement, just some notification to the residents up in those subdivisions that we are changing the stop signs. Up there, they were installed by the developer, but although we have not assumed the subdivision, it's lingering too long. We've got to deal with the traffic up there regardless. So it'll be staff's recommendation that we enter into a bylaw to change the configurations of the stop signs up there, which I think will be well received by the residents. We have received quite a few letters requesting this, as well as a speed reduction. As of right now, that subdivision, like Helen Street going in, is 50 kilometers an hour. In an internal subdivision, that is too fast. So they're looking for a speed reduction. So staff's going to take a look at that, look at the class of the roads, and bring forward a recommendation. I don't think an internal subdivision where you really have no way to go out, it's not a throughway, you need to be going 50 kilometers an hour. We will also include the Black Cat radar data. We did, in advance of this, install the Black Cat to see what was happening on Darrell Drain Crescent and Mill Pond Lane. So we have an idea of what's actually happening. And of course, it's always the one-offs. 70% of the population are going between in a, acceptable speed range, and then you have the one-offs, and the one-offs, we're seeing 70 and 80 kilometers an hour in that subdivision. So again, but the stop signs will help with that, because it'll make people stop more often. They won't be able to get to those great speeds while traveling in there as well. So it's a bit of a dual approach to deal with the traffic up there, which is what the residents are asking for. So that is what's coming up for April 12th. And then anything beyond that, I'll leave it for council with any questions.
Thank you, Candace. That just goes to show that Norwood wasn't built in the day. Everything takes time. Questions of council, from council, anyone? All right, seeing no hands, then the recommendation is that we accept this report with the revisions that were suggested by our CAO, and we had nothing from council, but I'll take a motion then for that, please. Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, on to correspondence for action then. Town of Blue Mountains, Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force resolution. There was a fair bit of information on that. There's some stuff that's kind of hidden behind the scenes that if you need clarification, you can ask our CAO. But any discussion on this as to how you'd like to do the motion? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
I would make a motion to receive. We're at this township, we're well into the advanced stages of official planning and intensification and growth planning. So when it comes to Blue Mountain, we'll receive this one.
Thank you. Excellent. Seconded by Councillor War. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Oh, Candace, I'm sorry, I didn't call all in favor yet, I guess. Go ahead. Do you want to say something?
No, the motion is passed. I just wanted, that's fine. I just wanted to draw council's attention in case they missed it. a little nuance hidden on page 22 of this report, item number 44. And it states, work with municipalities to develop and implement a municipal services corporation utility for water and wastewater, under which the municipal corporation would borrow and amortize costs among customers instead of using development charges. That, out of all of the recommendations in here, that is going back to a public utility. So that is pulling water and wastewater out of the municipal corporation and setting the rates and going back to a utility such as a hydro utility for water and wastewater. It's a heavy recommendation that would have huge impacts to all service municipalities. So I just wanted to highlight I suspect I will be bringing something forward for that as far as communication, because we need to touch base with the province on that. Out of all the stuff that's buried in this report, item number 44 would have the biggest impact to Asphodel-Norwood.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that forward. All right, so the motion was carried. Sorry about that before you had a chance to talk, but I'll be better on the next one. C6 then, the town of Mono, I guess it's called, support for Ukraine. Recommendation that the township of Asphodel-Norwood receive correspondence, C6, for information or for support or both. Motion by. Just waiting. Councillor Ward, please. Is that with support? You're muted, but I believe you said support. So, yeah. Second it by Deputy Mayor Burt. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. Council liaison reports. Does anyone have anything they'd like to bring forward that they're going to email Melanie with after? Nothing? I don't see any hands at this time. Okay then, thank you. CAO clerk treasurer's list then, Candace, you're on board again.
Thank you, Mayor. Just something quick. It's getting to that time of year again where the residents are going to start asking about street sweeping now that the snow has melted. Yes, the street sweeper has been scheduled. Again, we're in the queue as we are each year. So as long as Mother Nature cooperates and the weather, we don't get a lot of rain, they'll work through the queue and they'll be able to get here faster, but has been scheduled. We have launched the Choose Local Spring campaign. I don't know if council has seen that, but we're getting positive reviews and feedback from our business community in regards to that campaign, and we'll be pushing that over the course of the next few weeks. We are also working on activities and plans for Trails Day and Earth Day. So stay tuned for the information in regards to that, those special events in the township. As well as there has been quite a few comments, and I don't know if council is getting them or not, but I thought it may be an opportunity now to bring it up. So yes, the Christmas snowflakes are still up in the village. And the reason they're up is we have to pay a bucket truck to come in and take them down. So we decided we would hold off and due to the rising costs of that service and have them hang our banners at the same time. Otherwise, we'd have to deploy and pay for that bucket truck to come in twice within basically 60 days. They come take the snowflakes down and then come back the spring, and our nice banners back up. So we decided they can take the snowflakes down and put the banners up at the same time. As the snowflakes are LED, the impact on hydro is minimal. It would cost more to bring the bucket truck in twice. So just efficiency wise, that's the reason if you're being asked why the snowflakes are still up. And I think that's it for me, Mayor. As you know, how I've been spending my time in the OLT hearing between the last council meeting and this meeting. So that's all I have to report at this time.
Okay, thank you. We should have mentioned about the snowflakes and the bucket truck to the climate change delegation.
Yes, saving fuel.
My phone's ringing. I just got to let it ring for a second here, so I'll mute on. Is there anything under general business anyone would like to discuss? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, just in response to the delegation, as you just mentioned, they had a summary request. So I think at this point we need to decide if or what we will do, because a written response was required. So I can start that conversation if you want. I guess that's up to this group. If anybody wanted to join that climate caucus, I for one am not. I think many of us are on a number of committees, but just for everyone's information, I am on the county Climate Action Committee. We meet generally quarterly, and that's run through Peterborough Green Up. And I know there is a report coming to County Council, likely at our next council meeting, if not the one after that, as to what was done in 2021. So that is something that, on behalf of the county and the townships, that is going on. And I certainly think with the summary request with the educate citizens with a mail out, I think I certainly, if you're thinking of climate, I wouldn't send an individual mail out, but certainly information when taxes go out or water information. And it could be, what people are doing in the community. Certainly the idea of heat pumps. There's a number of things, and I think our staff is pretty good, especially when we come into Earth Day in April. There's a lot that goes on social media regarding that. And what's the fourth one? Listen to youth. And I think that's good. I don't know where we go with that one, but anyhow, I just wanted to put that out there. I think it's something that we just need to discuss and send them a reply. And there's always room for improvement, but I think we're doing pretty good here as well. So.
All right, that starts the conversation. Anyone else have anything else under this general business for that topic of climate with the delegation? All right, seeing no hands, I had a few comments, but you've basically covered them all. And some of the stuff I have, I guess would probably be a discussion for another day. Might be an argument with some, it might be good for others. It's hard to say, but I'll keep my thoughts to myself. So what you're asking then, Deputy Mayor Burt, is that we just send a paper to acknowledge the fact that we've gotten this, and we're going to do the best that we can in our township to basically save the climate in our area. I guess that's all we can do. I mean, I think Peterborough County is doing famous for everything that we're doing. We manage our forests. We get some of the better vehicles, like you said before earlier, that like I'm talking the rural areas and one thing after another. We're doing our part, that's for sure. I think Canada is one of the lowest emissions in all of the world. I think China needs to catch up to a lot of the stuff that's going on out there if we really want to save this world. But Peterborough County on its own, I think we're doing well. But Candice, do you need help to help critique that letter as to what Deputy Mayor Burt was suggesting, or do you have some ideas that we can send off?
It would need to be a motion, Mayor. So the motion would have to address the 4 items that they have requested. So join the Climate Caucus, a national working group on the climate crisis by and for municipal leaders. Deputy Mayor Burt has spoke to say that she would not be joining. So I guess, is there anyone in the group that would want to join that caucus?
Myself, no. And like I said, Deputy Mayor Burt is already on the climate for Peterborough County, but anyone else have any, put your hand up if you'd like to join. All right, seeing no hands on that one.
So that would be the first item of the motion, is saying at this time, and we can also clarify in the motion that we do have a member of our council that sits on the Peterborough County Climate, what's it called, Deputy Mayor, exactly? Peterborough County.
You're muted, Lori.
Peterborough County Climate Action Committee.
Peterborough County Climate Action Committee. So we'll state that we have a representative that sits on that committee. Form a joint citizens council climate emergency task force. So that would be one that would be local to our municipality, where residents and council will sit on it together, and it would be a climate emergency task force and work on milestone 5 locally and at the county level.
Just a comment, is that something through our EdBack or whatever it's called now, that something like that could be brought forward? All right.
The special projects committee. I mean, if they wanted to do something, I think pretty much they're looking at planting trees this year, which would definitely have climate impact. I think I can make it so that they're aware that the township would like those climate type things, but I don't think we need to add this specifically to their mandate. This is asking if you want a separate one. So again, I'm just reading these out. You guys got to tell me what you want. So that's noted number 1. So Citizen Council Climate Emergency Task Force.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Burt, you've had your hand up.
I think if there's a climate emergency task force, we have to declare a climate emergency. So I am at this point not willing to do that, and I'll put that out to the rest of council.
Council, your thoughts? Hands up if you want a climate task force. So that's a no also then, Candace. Thanks.
Educate your citizens with a mail out. Influence farmers and homeowners regarding regenerative agriculture, reduction of carbon emissions from buildings. We're going to do a separate mail out. Do we want to incorporate it in our regular? I mean, there would probably be opportunities to include it in our tax newsletter, a little blurb, you know, during those. So I don't think we necessarily need to do something specific. That's just my 2 cents, but we could add it to an already piece of correspondence going out the door.
I have a comment too, but I've seen 2 hands. So Councillor War, your thoughts?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Just what Candace was saying, I think that maybe there is a spot on the newsletter that's with the tax, the send out with the taxes, that we could put a little blurb in, you know, and maybe do some blasts on social media, you know, about different things, maybe incentives for electric cars or, you know, heat pumps, like there are government things. Maybe we can push those out that way. You know, again, not going the paper route. So, you know, a little bit of saving some money on that front as well. But the educational portion of it, maybe we can address a little bit.
Little snippets of here and there, I guess. Councillor Walsh, you had your hand up.
Yeah, and just through you, Mary, and really it's just to build on what Councillor Warris said is, again, if we can use our social media as a way to get some information out to the residents of the community. I wasn't aware of the bale wrap option. I'm sure there's lots of farmers that are, but there may be farmers that are not. So if we can share through social media that, you know, that Switch Energy Corp, or sounds like Deputy Mayor Burt said there's 1 or 2 other companies maybe out there. Again, just sharing those best practices that are going on now that may be of help to other farmers in the area, and the ground source heat pump opportunities just through social media. Again, not using papers is just a way to help educate.
Deputy Mayor Burt.
Yeah, I agree. Just a comment on the agricultural and boat wrap. The OFA member rep at our last PCFA meeting, it's been a bit of a struggle with COVID, and that right now there doesn't appear to be an end market to it. So there was a kind of a study going on in one of the counties to the north, and he couldn't remember which county it was, but it, like I say, it's hit a slowdown and a snag. So I'm sure once things get moving, it will be up and running, but right now, not so much. So if I hear anything more on that, I can let everyone know as well.
And on a representative of waste management for Peterborough County, they're having a meeting this Friday, but I have to miss it for an appointment. But the fact is maybe something may have to go back to the suppliers again, because when they take over recycling, I mean, that's part of the product that they're giving. They may have to come up with an end product that they have to take it back somehow, or help us get rid of it ourselves somehow through monies or something like that down the road. We don't know where that's at yet. That's a few years out, I'm sure, but there's probably going to be more discussion on stuff like that. So Candace, you had anything else that we needed to put into this motion?
Number 4 is listen to youth.
Deputy Mayor Burt?
I'm just wondering, the listen to youth, I think we all know that they are our future. And I'm just wondering what programs, I'm sure there's programs. We have 2 schools, a daycare and a high school, and I'm sure they have a number of programs that they promote and do within their own school communities. And I don't know how we reach out to them, but maybe, you know, April is coming up with Earth Day and Earth Week, and perhaps it's a matter of social or sharing their social media feeds or something. Maybe they have groups that they could share their information with us. I think it just open lines of communication with seeing what the schools and the youth are doing in the community. How we go about that, I'm not sure, but just a thought.
Well, I can tell you some youth that congregate downtown don't seem to care about the environment. Leaving garbage and one thing after another down there on the main street. It's just, it's appalling actually. So hopefully they learn something about Earth Day and recycling and one thing after another, and it finally sinks in. Hopefully not and wait till they're adults. All right, so you need some help on this critiquing of the motion, Candace, or can you help us on that one?
No, I think we have it. I think we'll basically list exactly what you guys stated, that so that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood, I took my page, will not be joining the Climate Caucus at this time. And further, that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood wishes to advise the For Our Grandchildren group that we have a current representative that sits on the Peterborough County Climate Action Committee. And further, that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood at this time does not wish to convene a Citizens Council Climate Emergency Task Force. And further, that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood does support the initiative to educate our citizens and will do so through social media, website, and existing newsletter opportunities. And further, that the Township of Asphodel-Norwood supports any opportunities as they arise to engage our youth on the important topic of climate change.
Wow. There's no catching you today. All right, Deputy Mayor Burt, those are mostly your comments and questions and concerns and whatever. You want to make that motion?
I will. She stated it so much better than I would.
Very good. Do I have a seconder on that? Councillor Ward, is there any other discussion, comments, concerns going on that motion? All right, seeing no hands, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, as stated earlier when we began the meeting that we did amend the agenda for a closed session today. So we'll be suspending our regular council meeting to go into closed session for items 239B and 239E. So I need a motion to suspend our council to go into a closed session, then please, at 2:48. Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor?